The story of Daniel, faithfulness in exile and God's sovereignty. The story of Daniel is a powerful testament to faithfulness and God's control over all things. It's not just a story about one man's unwavering trust in God, but it also shows us how God works through history to display His sovereignty. Imagine being a young man, taken from your homeland and thrust into a foreign culture. This is how Daniel's journey begins. Through trials and triumphs, his story inspires us to remain faithful. No matter the circumstances, Daniel's story kicks off with the invasion of Jerusalem by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon in 605 BC. Among the captives taken were Daniel and his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. These were young men, likely teenagers, with bright minds and strong bodies, chosen to serve in the Babylonian court. Here's the catch: Nebuchadnezzar wanted to reprogram these young men. He changed their names to Babylonian ones. Daniel became Belteshazzar, and his friends were renamed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Even their diets were changed, with the king providing rich food and wine. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with these provisions. Instead, he requested a simple diet of vegetables and water. Now, imagine being in Daniel's shoes, a teenager in a foreign land, standing up for your beliefs. His faith paid off. After a 10-day test, Daniel and his friends looked healthier than anyone else in the program. This small but significant act set the stage for Daniel's lifelong commitment to God. Let's move on to Nebuchadnezzar's troubling dream. The king demanded his wise men not only interpret the dream but also tell him what it was. Of course, they couldn't, and Nebuchadnezzar ordered their execution. Talk about high stakes. True to the dream, Nebuchadnezzar's pride led to his downfall. He spent 7 years living like a beast, eating grass and dwelling in the wilderness. When his sanity was restored, he praised God, recognizing his rule over all. This story is a vivid reminder that even the most powerful human rulers are subject to God's authority. Fast forward to Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar's successor, who didn't learn from his predecessor's mistakes. The next test of faith involved Daniel's 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Nebuchadnezzar built a massive golden statue and commanded everyone to bow down and worship it. Those who refused would be thrown into a fiery furnace. The 3 young men boldly defied the king's command, declaring that their God could save them from the fire, but even if he chose not to, they would not worship the statue. Nebuchadnezzar was enraged and ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than usual. The 3 men were bound and thrown into the flames. Yet, when the king looked into the furnace, he was astonished to see not 3 but 4 men walking unharmed in the fire. The 4th figure appeared like a son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar called them out of the furnace, and they emerged completely unscathed, without even the smell of smoke on their clothes. This miraculous deliverance led Nebuchadnezzar to praise the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, declaring that no other God could save in such a way. In another significant episode, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream about a great tree. The tree was large and magnificent, providing shelter and food for all creatures. But in the dream, a heavenly messenger decreed that the tree be cut down, leaving only the stump bound with iron and bronze. This dream troubled the king, and once again, Daniel was called to interpret it. Daniel revealed that the tree represented Nebuchadnezzar himself. His kingdom was great and mighty, but because of his pride, God would humble him. Nebuchadnezzar would be driven from human society and live like an animal until he acknowledged that God is the ultimate ruler over all kingdoms. True to the prophecy, Nebuchadnezzar was struck with madness and lived as a beast for 7 years. However, when he finally acknowledged God's sovereignty, his sanity was restored, and his kingdom was returned to him. This experience transformed Nebuchadnezzar, and he praised and honored the God of heaven. During a feast, he used sacred vessels from the Jerusalem temple to praise Babylonian gods. Suddenly, a mysterious hand appeared and wrote on the wall, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. No one could interpret the message, so Daniel was called. He explained that it meant Belshazzar's reign was over. His kingdom was divided, and he had been weighed and found wanting. That very night, Babylon fell to the Medes and Persians, fulfilling God's judgment. This event showed that God's justice is swift and unavoidable. Finally, we come to the famous story of Daniel in the lion's den. By now, Daniel was serving under Darius the Mede and had become one of the top officials in the kingdom. His success made other officials jealous, and they plotted against him. Knowing Daniel's devotion to God, they convinced Darius to issue a decree banning prayer to anyone but the king for 30 days. Daniel, of course, continued praying to God 3 times a day. When the officials reported him, Darius was distressed but couldn't change the law. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, but God shut the lions' mouths, and he emerged unharmed. Darius was so moved that he issued a decree honoring Daniel's God as the living God whose kingdom endures forever. Throughout the book of Daniel, one theme stands out: God is in control. He raises up kings and brings them down. He reveals the future and directs the course of history. The visions given to Daniel provide a prophetic roadmap, showing that God's eternal kingdom will triumph over all earthly powers. Daniel's life is a masterclass in faithfulness. From refusing the king's food to facing the lions, he remained steadfast in his devotion to God. His friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, also showed unwavering trust in God's power to save. Their courage inspires us to stand firm in our faith, even when the odds are against us. The book of Daniel is also rich in prophecy. For example, the vision of the 70 weeks in Daniel 9 points to the coming of the Messiah. The accuracy of these prophecies confirms the reliability of Scripture and reminds us that God's plans are always on track. The story of Daniel is a timeless reminder that God is sovereign, even in the most challenging circumstances. Daniel's faithfulness and God's power shine through every trial, offering hope and encouragement to believers. In today's world, where faith is often tested, Daniel's example calls us to trust in God, obey His word, and live with confidence in His ultimate victory. His story assures us that no matter what happens, God's kingdom will prevail, and His purposes will be fulfilled.